Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio on AM 590 ESPN Omaha and ESPN Tri-Cities. I'm Robbie Lula, Andrew Rogers here with me, and we are joined now by our friend Sam McKewon from the Omaha World Herald on that Warhorse Sportsbook hotline. Sam, how are you this morning?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good. You seem like you're in a much better mood on a Monday after the loss that we experienced than most people.
Yeah, I mean, my mood is not contingent on them winning and losing. I've been covering the program for a long time, so and that's true. Like it never has been. I don't gauge my work on whether they win or lose. I don't have a choice. You know, I mean, the approval rate of Congress is low, but people got to cover it.
So. Sam,
Shane just got it. He just started laughing.
Sam, as you kind of look back at the game on Saturday, obviously the quarterback position is the hyper focus of most people, myself included. I guess, how much do you look at what we've seen from the quarterbacks now, all three of them that are, scholarship quarterbacks on the roster here? How much do you look at it as an individual problem, and how much have you started to look at it as, hey, maybe we have a Marcus Satterfield problem?
Oh, I mean, I think there's things going on, with each one of those guys that maybe a little bit different. I think the sample size for Purdy is too small.
Sure.
But, his one drive, which was successful up until the last 3 plays of it, is contained two of the more defining plays of the game. So things that really hurt him. So, you got to look at it that way. I think with Jeff Sims, I think he's just not the guy that he was when he was at Georgia Tech. And I don't know. I'm sure there's explanations for the final interception, for sure. I don't know exactly. We'll find out today. Rule was trying to explain it, but I don't really know. Did Sims not let the routes clear? Did he think Kempson was going to do something else? I don't know. The fumble obviously shouldn't have happened, and that play just shouldn't have occurred.
Mm-hmm.
And it did, because Sims wasn't doing what he was supposed to be doing. I mean, you can watch that play 100 times and know what he was supposed to do, and he didn't do it. He did what Anthony Grant likes to do, which is, not run into the hole and try to go somewhere else. So, I don't know. That's something that's unfortunate. And then you have Harburg, and I just don't think Harburg's been, A, he's beat up, clearly. B, he's not playing very well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no other way to say that. And for people who, you always have to have the the longer view and understand, and preach caution where it's necessary. But some of what we're seeing with Harburg is just a byproduct of defenses adjusting, of playing Power 5 defenses instead of, Louisiana Tech and Northern Illinois, and potentially, not having Satterfield on the sideline. I don't know. That's something to watch, but he's just not playing very well. And one of the things that you can't do when you're a head coach is, like, if your team doesn't play hard, or if your team doesn't show the right edge or energy, you can do what Rule did after the Illinois game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can get worked up and fired up, but quarterback play, while to some degree it's about toughness, right? To a greater degree, it's about all of the things.
Mm-hmm.
It's about precision, and it's about discipline, and it's about know-how, and it's about a lot of different things. It isn't just about culture. Like, your quarterback has to be larger than just your, culture. And so he can't afford to be Luke Reimer. Reimer can run around and make plays, and quarterbacks can do that for a while, but then people figure you out. $1 million coaches, which is what Michigan State and Maryland have, and Purdue, I guess, to some degree too. And then you have to adjust. And so I think that's one of the things they're working through. And it's the hardest position in sports. There's nothing harder. There's just nothing harder. So Will knows that. And I think you're going to see his response, shaped by the knowledge that you can't just come out and challenge everybody's manhood. That's just not how it works. I mean, the position's more complex than pure guts. And so it's kind of a mess for sure. I don't know exactly how they're going to figure it out over the next 2 weeks, but they've got to get better play than they've gotten in the last 3 weeks. It wasn't great against Purdue either. Frankly, it wasn't that great against Northwestern. It just hasn't been real good. And so they've got to find a way to get it a little bit better. And if that means you got to be a little more modest, then you're a little more modest. But they got to figure something out.
Sam, you mentioned that Jeff Sims isn't the same guy as he was at Georgia Tech, although some people would say that he is exactly like he was at Georgia Tech with the turnovers. What do you think, what do you personally think it was what Nebraska was expecting to get out of Jeff Sims when he got here? That
play. We need a chunk play somewhere. We need to be able to provide that. We think we can beat their defense on man coverage. We don't think they're that disciplined. Nebraska was right about that. We think we can get these guys for a big one. We just have to scheme it up and protect our quarterback. And I'm sure it's extremely deflating to then see the decisions that are made. Harburg had a touchdown on his interception. He had a touchdown. Billy Kemp is open for a touchdown. And I have to think Kemp is a primary read on that play, and Harburg just didn't throw it to him. He threw it to Fedoni, who was coming out of a break. And people might have thought Rule was talking about that Fedoni interception when he was talking about being animated. That was the interception, that Sims' first interception. And it wasn't Harburg. Harburg just threw it high and wide of a guy who wasn't open after ignoring a guy who was, for a touchdown. So I don't know. I just don't know. It's challenging to talk about these things in such frank terms because we've done it a lot over the course of covering the team, and nobody wants to be rude because the team's won 5 games, which is more than any team at Nebraska since 2018. And you have to have some acknowledgement of that. And I think you have to keep things in context. But simultaneously, it appears that they could have won 8 by now. They could have had Iowa's season.
Easy.
I don't think there was much keeping them from Iowa's season. It's the worst Big Ten we've ever seen. And so outside of 2 teams, Penn State's not even very good.
No.
I mean, they've obviously been a bust. So there just was great opportunity here, and it feels like it's been frittered away based on players that just don't appear to always know what they're doing. And that's too bad. It's too bad. They basically told Casey Thompson thanks, but no thanks. And they didn't say it in those terms, but of course Casey got hurt. So maybe Casey would have gotten hurt again, but man, he could have done a lot of the things that they're doing right now. He could have done quite well. So it's too bad.
We're talking with Sam McKewon from the Omaha World Herald. So, Sam, if you were a betting man, who would you place the wager on taking the first snap at quarterback on Saturday?
If Harburg's healthy, I would say Harburg. I think they'll work really hard on getting him ready for sure. It's possible that Chuba can do it. I don't. They must have been really concerned about his injury. That they thought that Sims was because Sims burned his, he can't redshirt.
Right.
He burned it. His 5 games. I don't. Maybe they'll try to. And everybody tries this stuff now. It's like, well, he only played in one play in the one game, and whatever. Maybe they'll try that. I don't know, but he just played his 5th game, and he just didn't look prepared. I mean, he just didn't look ready to play. And so Purdy comes in and, Purdy made the mistake that he made late, and I don't mean the pass. Improvising a run call there was a mistake, but he looked, more spry and more aware of what was going on than Sims did. So I would think, Purdy's your number 2, but they must have thought he had a real issue to not play him. Not even give him a shot. I don't know. This is tough territory because, again, Matt Rule could have hired a lot of people for $1.4 million. A lot of people would have taken a job at Nebraska. Jake Peets apparently wasn't one of them, but he could have hired a lot of people, and he hired his close friend, whose offenses have turned the ball over pretty consistently wherever he's gone, and this is what has happened. I mean, it's a tough conversation because, again, it puts reporters in the position of asking questions that, if you look at the current media pool at Nebraska, it's just not what Bo Pelini was facing. We need to be honest. Like Bo had a much tougher group of inquisitors than what we're at now. I mean, I think, and part of that's because Nebraska was more successful as a program when Bo took over and was doing what he was doing. But this offense, the way it's operating, and of course the injuries don't help, but the way this offense is operating makes the 2009 offense look pretty darn good. So, that's the challenge of this moment is it's just pretty bad, and we'll see what the conversation is this week. What I'll say is that it's okay if we don't spend too much this week on the locker room speeches and all that. I think fans want to know. I'm serious now. I mean, they're good at this. Nebraska's really good at this.
Yeah,
they're good. They're good at being able to say, of saying whatever's going on the field, we're good people. Noted. Noted.
Now be good at football.
Agreed. And believe me, I hear it from people, and they really appreciate all of that stuff. It's good.
Sure.
Noted. That doesn't have anything to do with the 5 turnovers, and you can do all those things and only turn it over once too. So, some of it is we're the people that are there to ask the questions, and maybe there comes a point where we don't necessarily have to focus it on the building blocks of culture, because I think the culture is actually quite sound. Quarterback play isn't necessarily about morals. It's about other things, and that's where they're not as good as they could be.
Sam, do you think we'll be having a conversation in a couple of weeks about whether or not Marcus Satterfield is returning?
We may be having it. Whether or not Matt Rule wants to have it is another question, and he may not. It may not. He may feel like, hey, you know what? This guy's doing what I'm asking him to do. I'm asking him to design big plays and to try to get our offense going. And if you think we're going to run, you think we're going to chunk out 17 play drives for 79 yards and touchdowns all the time, you're delusional. Like, he could say that, and I don't think he'd necessarily be wrong in saying it. Saying, well, what do you want us to do? Just just hand the ball off to Emmett Johnson 37 times and have him gain 107 yards, and then we score 6 points, but we can laudably claim that we didn't turn it over. Like, I mean, there's some risk to it. You got to take some risk. You got to put a few things on the line, and Coach Tom Osborne, gall darn it. I mean, some of these things are open, and that, the question becomes, why aren't they making the plays that are available to them? Just because they would be big plays doesn't mean that they were the wrong ones to make. I think the third down call at the end of the game is definitely one that, rule that I think you can second guess. Heinrich Harburg at midfield having an opportunity to hit Billy Kemp on a go route from the slot for a touchdown, and instead he throws an interception to a player that he probably didn't need to throw to. I don't think that's Marcus Satterfield's fault, other than the fact that, like, what are we teaching during the week that would lead the quarterback to do that instead of just taking the obvious big play? And I just don't know that that's what's tricky about it. Sometimes players just don't do what you'd hope they would do, and you gotta examine whether or not that's the player or that's the coach. The challenge is coaches make so much money now that we expect them to be perfect, and they're not perfect. And so that's part of the challenge, is that with the more money that goes into the sport, the more likely everybody is willing to make a change, because they figure that somebody's making all this money, so they got to be right all the time. Coaches are human too. So I'm not necessarily trying to defend Satterfield, but what I'm saying is that, like, it's a complex situation, and they have done such an incredible job of focusing on the fiber and the character of the team and what they want in terms of the fight, the edge, and all that. They've established that. Now I think it comes down to, hey, making heady plays and precision and managing a game well. And those aren't necessarily things you can get just by, off-season workouts. Those are things that you have to improve on in different ways. And so I think that's the thing they're working through, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Sam, I guess, I mean, sometimes I understand what you're saying, but with Satterfield specifically, and, you talk about the money, and I don't personally care about what assistants make, because, I mean, it's not my money. What difference does it make to me? But
right.
We're not asking for perfection here from Satterfield, right? We're asking for, like, not the worst turnover team we've ever seen, like, which is a very different bar, right? Like, so that's where I have a hard time, even with the injuries and stuff like that, because I feel like I've been pretty gracious with Satterfield up until this point because of that.
Sure.
But there's just a point where you're like, hey, and like you said, he's got a history of having offenses that turn the ball over. At some point, do you just kind of have to, the same way we look at the quarterbacks and say, hey, this is a guy that can't do X, Y, and Z. Like, at what point do you have to look at Satterfield and be like, hey, this is who this guy is?
Yeah, I think that's perfectly legitimate. I think there's something to be said for that. I'm sure he's going to get some, Rule will get some hard questions. Satterfield will too, and they'll have to address those. And again, I'm not trying to necessarily defend it. The offense is bad for sure. And the quarterback play is bad. I think what I would say is, part of my job, I think part is to just try to dig into it, and try to figure out what the dynamics are. And, the guy goes up to the box, the offense got worse. It did.
Yeah.
It got worse. He's been up in the box for 3 weeks, and the offense didn't improve. They scored 31 points against Purdue, but come on. I mean, we know how that happened, and we kind of saw it. We saw how they scored, and in the last week it wasn't good at Michigan State, and it was bad this week. So, like what's happened? Well, the last 4 games they haven't been very good on offense. How do you fix that? What do you examine? Why are they turning the ball over so much in the fourth quarter? The time when they say they want to be at their very best is when they are turning the ball over a lot. And are they asking players to do things they can't do, and all those other things? One of the fundamental challenges of it is that they decided, Matt Rule decided to hire Marcus Satterfield. 1, 2, together they thought that Jeff Sims was going to be the quarterback for this team. For whatever reason, he wasn't healthy, but he also just isn't. He wasn't the guy. Like, he wasn't the guy at Minnesota, and he wasn't the guy at Colorado. And then when he came back on Saturday, after many, many weeks of, hopefully getting better and, thinking about those things, he fumbles the ball in a situation where it was completely his fault. Like, it wasn't, oh man, bad protection. He had a quarterback counter for 3 yards. He turned it down to try to run around an entire defense. He couldn't do it, and they knocked the ball. And, that to me, that's just textbook. And then, again, he goes back out there, and it's like, let's throw a big pass. Like, I don't know. I mean, some of the stuff just begs questioning, and we'll see where it goes.
Sam, you mentioned Satterfield up in the box quickly here. Got about 145. I read your story over the weekend and saw the statistics that you compiled on Harburg since he's gone up into the box. A couple of things. How important do you think it is for him to move back down to coach his quarterback on the sideline? Or do you think this was kind of like a coaching move for Rule to move him up to the box so he could be the coach for Harburg on the sidelines? If that's one piece of it, or if that's not a piece of it at all, and it is what we've been talking about with Satterfield and some incompetence, if that's too harsh of a term, whatever. But do you ever see Rule possibly taking over play calling duties?
I don't. But maybe. I think Satterfield went up there because you can see the game better. Okay. And I think that's where his natural desire is to be. And that doesn't mean all I'm saying is that since he went up to the box, Harburg's play has not improved. So, the play design maybe the play design is better, but the play at quarterback is better.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Adam D. Michelle can resolve that as the quarterback, whatever. So, I don't know. Maybe Rule can take it back over. That's entirely possible, but I think Satterfield will finish it out. Maybe we'll be surprised by news today. I don't know.
That is Sam McKewon from the Omaha World Herald. Good stuff today, Sam. We appreciate you as always.
Take care, man.
Hey, thanks, Sam. We could have kept him for an hour.
Oh, yeah. I've still got – we didn't even get – I wanted to ask about the offensive line. I wanted to ask about – so many things and a lot of questions, good questions coming in on our YouTube channel as well. Keep those coming in. We've got more of Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back.